and thanks guys for joining in today's session. So yeah, so the first thing we have today is we're going to be walking through control flow, and then I just want to, I know that you guys have already done all of these bits, you've already been introduced to how Python works and some sort of it, but yeah, but our own intention is to see how you can make use of this thing in the real practical field. Okay, so please mind me if I'm actually introducing some of these things to you guys again. But at the end of this class today, I'm going to be using data sets to work with all of these concepts that I'm going to be teaching you. So just go with me, just bear with me as I try to go through all of these slides, and then, if there's anything that you understand, just let me know. So the first thing that we'll just walk through is what is actually the Python programming syntax. So first off, some things that you should have been, at this stage, should have, have an idea about, some things called Python identifiers, some reserved words in Python, lines and indentations, comments, and quotation in Python. So this is just to quickly run through some of the things that you've learned back in your beginner stage. So I'm going to be, as I'm doing this, I'll be sharing my my Jupyter notebook and all that. Okay, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, great. So yeah, so one thing I just want to quickly confirm now is that I want to know which of the IDE do you guys make use of? Do you use Jupyter Notebook, or you use VS Code, or you use PyCharm? So which one are you more comfortable with?
VS Code.
Okay, guys, just use VS Code, right?
Yeah, we use Jupyter Notebook inside VS Code.
VS Code.
Okay, great. So so I'm actually be switching it. I'll use VS Code and go to Jupyter Notebook, and then, because it is very important that you have an idea of how to. Okay, Jupyter Notebook and VS Code. Okay, it's just very important that you to make use of this. It's so ID. You can even make use of PyCharm here. That's my PyCharm here. Okay, it's my PyCharm here. Yeah. So, do you guys make use of PyCharm as well?
No.
No, we did not.
Okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. All right, great. So fine. Let me open this up. Okay. All right, great. So great. So the first thing I introduced earlier on was reserved words, right? Yeah. So Python identifiers, reserved words, lines and indentation, comment in Python, and quotation in Python. So yeah. So all of these things, for example, for the reserved words, we know we have so many reserved words in Python, right? So for example, when you use an statements, you use a follows, when you use a try and a set block, where you use there's so many of them. Okay, there's so many of them. Find keyword. So all of these guys here, all of them here are reserved. So the thing is that you're not expected to make use of all of these things when you're trying to create a variable name, right? So and what do you understand by variable name? Variable name is just what you use to store some values, right? Maybe use to store values for list, dictionary, or tuples, and all of these ones, right? So let's say one is equals to 20. So yeah. So we say maybe variable 2. Say it is 20. Say this is 3 now. 1 and step. And print out. So, and that gives you that. So
are you sorry, are you sharing your screen? I
can
only
you,
see like
are you seeing my,
static page.
oh, you're not sharing my screen?
I can't see you type. Like I don't know if you're typing or if you're,
Oh, wait. Sorry guys, can you
yeah,
see my
it's
screen
clear
now? Oh,
It's fine.
so you didn't see when I was showing the VS Code part, you didn't see all of those ones. Okay, so sorry about that. But can you guys see my screen now?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can see your screen. You
We can
guys,
see your
you
screen.
guys
Now.
should please, you guys should please speak up if you're not if something is not going on as it's supposed to. Sure, you get. It's Kafaya here because I know if Kafaya is there, she would have spoken up. It's Kafaya here.
Yes, I'm here. Courage.
All right.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. So I didn't actually know that you weren't seeing my screen. Okay. So sorry about that. Okay. No problem. So going back to what I've done. So what I was explaining right before then was that I was trying to explain what all of this, just like a revision. So reserve words. I know that you have all been introduced to all of those ones. So I just telling you more about reserve word, why you shouldn't make a reserve word in, trying to create a new variable name, and then the variable name shouldn't start with reserve word because it is not accepted in Python. Okay, so we see that this is not accepted in Python, right? So none of the reserve words can be used as a variable in Python. So that is very clear on that. And those are the examples of reserved words. So we have what comments, and this is here. So when you're trying to comment something, you can just add a you can do a comment on maybe some lines of code. And reason why you're doing comment is just because you want Python to probably ignore those codes, so that it goes to the next line and runs the other lines. Okay. Yeah, great. So that's comments in Python, and then quotations in Python. Quotation basically it's actually makes use for strings. So maybe you're trying to define a string, say something like this. Like this, and then set this to say maybe, yeah. So yeah, so you can actually just put this out. Comment name class. Is this code? No, this is not. Sorry, this is not. Yeah, so that's great. All right, so that's the quotation mark. So this what we have here, what we have here in between the quotation mark are those values of the string. Okay, so this is strings, right? Because of the quotation mark. Great. So let's just move on. So that's just a basic explanation here we have it. Then we'll move to the next one. So lines of Python. So I'm sure all of you must have to make use of line. So for example, we having maybe some sort of like an if statement. So we want to say define a variable called now. And you want to write an if statement. Say if now is 17, use your column. Now, if you notice something here, when you run your enter, you see that the next line of code is not starting from the beginning of this, right? Of this line is starting at the, there's an indentation here because all this place to this place is like an indentation. There's an indentation there. So that's line of code. That's a indentation in Python. So it's also called block code, right? It's called block. So all of this is very, very important to have to know how to make use of them, because there's things that they will help you when you're trying to write code. Okay, so you should be able to make use of indentation, Python, all that. Okay, so great. Then, so yeah, of course. So you have number. So I defined this variable called number, and then in this variable number I've actually already there's a namespace where this NUM has already been stored to, right? So because the way Python works is that whenever you create a variable name, it is stored in a location already. So already it is stored in a location. So that location where it is stored contains what we call namespaces. So now this NUM, what we have here, has been stored as a variable name. So I can only reference, if I don't want to reference this variable name called null, the only thing I can only do is to delete namespaces. When I delete it and I run this NPM now, you will see that it is no longer defined in the Python in that environment. Okay, so yeah, so I'm showing you here how to use the syntax. This is how to make use of the syntax here, and this is an incorrect syntax because if you look at the indentation here, it is not is on the same first line of the code, and whenever you have a colon here, the next line of code should have an indentation here. So that is very, very important. So this is the correct syntax, and that was not correct. So yeah, let's go back to basically what we have for today, which is the Python control flow statement and loops. So basically, control flow statement is three. We have three of them, which is we have the conditional statement, we have the one that is the iterative statement, we have the transfer statement. Okay, so yeah, guys, can you see my screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me very well? Am I audible enough?
You are.
Okay, somebody said I can't hear you, it's breaking, please. Placidos, Ebuka.
You're actually breaking. You're breaking.
How about now? How about now?
Still breaking.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's clear now. It's clear.
Sorry, Timmy, speak. Speak, let me hear.
Hello?
But
Can you confirm to me?
I think it's poor network generally, but
speaking.
it gets better.
Hello? Okay, maybe network is bad.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I don't know what's wrong with the network.
I
We
think
can
it's
hear you now.
network in general, but I can hear you, but sometimes it breaks. But keep speaking.
Yeah, because I need to know if they can hear me. All right, great. So all right, problem. So let's continue with. But can you see my slides? Let me show.
No, I can't see your slide. Oh, okay.
Okay, great. So yeah, so the Python control flow actually has three types: with the conditional statement, the iterative statement, and transfer statement. I'm not going to be dwelling much more on explaining this because all of these are stuff you people already have an idea about. But what I'm much more interested in how to make use of them. Okay, great. So let's move on. Yeah. So the conditional statements. This is we have the if else statement, the if else statement, and the nested if else statements. So, for example, look at this. If we have a say number, and then the other number to be say 5, so we can actually write a if statement, a conditional statement, such that we'll be able to carry out a particular task based on the condition of what we have. For example, if number say is greater than of 7, you can say okay, print number is greater than 7. Okay, and then we can use our else statement here. So it's not. All right. So on this code here. So what is actually happening here basically is that this is a condition, right? And this is what is happening as the, so once this one evaluates to be true, this line of code will run. And once this one evaluates, if it's not true, then to pass this this line of code here to pass this, and they will come in and execute this line of code, which is what print number is greater than 7. So basically, if you look at what is happening here, number is 5. So if 5 is greater than 7, if 5 is greater than 7, this one will be what executed. But if 5 is not what greater than 7, this other one will be what will be executed. So basically, I always like to emphasize on writing quality code, okay, and understanding how algorithm works, because it's not just about you just taking codes from here and then put it in your Jupyter notebook to run a task. It's not that. You have to know and understand how it works. So yeah, so the if and else statement is just help you to have two possible conditions, which is number one, if the first statement executes to be true, to print the okay. So if the first one executes to be true, it's going to print the line of code in the first if block. Okay. So if it's not true, it's going to come to the else statement here and what execute this one, which is number is what's not greater than 7. Okay. So but then what is going to happen here is that I forgot to use my f strings. So let me use my f strings here. Okay. So this is an f strings format. Okay. Which I know you're already introduced to all of this before. So let me run this. Yeah. So my f strings format here replaces that 5, that number as what? As variable name. So because I was just using that num, which is num, as just a string type. But here is a variable name because of this my f formatting. I'm sure you people already have an understanding of how to use f format, f strings format. Does anybody have an idea what to make? Have you guys been introduced to f strings format?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Great. That's nice. That's nice. That's great. Okay. So let's move on. All right. So that's if else statements. So of course, then we also have that's for conditional statements. So the if else statement applies if else statement, then nested if else statement. So I might not really be making use of all the examples for all of these ones. I'll just be moving faster because what we intend doing at the end of today's class is that we want to make use of this in a real life scenario. Okay, so then we have transfer statements. They basically make use of the break and the continue statement or the pass statement. And then the iterative statement. So let me just make use of this. So for example, if you just you're working with the iterative statement, basically you probably be making use of for loops, then your while loops. Okay, while loops. Right. So for example, I actually want to iterate over a particular iterative sequence. So let's say, for example, let me just iterate like this for I in say range. Okay, then on this, then I need to print high. But no, I don't want to print I, but I also want to write a condition here. If I modulus 2, if that means if I modulus 2, that's if the I divided by 2 equals 0, then print I. So what this one is saying here, you're just quickly telling us that if your I, that's I is an even number. Because that even number that can only be divisible by 2, okay? So if I is an even number, then you can say print this guy. Now, after printing it, I want to. So what I want to do here is that I just want to walk through just only for a value, okay? So my I is going to go through to this range, and the range is from, it's going to go from, so we're going to go from 0, 1, 2, up to 9. Okay, and then when it gets to the first one, it prints is the first number, which is 0, is divisible by 2. If it's divisible by 2, then it will print it. As soon as it prints it, it's break. So break is that stop from there, don't continue. Don't just move, just end the iteration from there. Okay, and then this. So you see that you get what is 0 as your print statement. So because it's coming here from 0 here, right? So it goes to 0. When it goes to 0, it tried 0 divided by 2. If that will evaluate to 0, and if that is true, it's going to print 0 out, and then the next thing is going to break it. But if I don't use this break statement, of course, it's going to what? It's going to iterate for 0, 1, 2, up to 9. Yeah, so up to 9 and all that. So when we run this, it's going to actually print out all the even numbers we have. So it's 0, 2, 4, 6, up to 8. So it's going to print them in the next line. So 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and that's that. And here we are able to use the iterative. So we are able to use the iterative sequence here. And then here, use the conditional statement. Okay. And then here we use our reserve word, which is the print statement. Okay, and these are all the outputs. So these are tracing sequence using for loops. You can also use while loop, which is when you want to run a maybe a line of code continually, right? As long as the condition remains true, the next line of code, next block of code will run through. Okay, so that's the while loop. All right. So for that, we're moving on from that place because we want to see this in practical aspect. Okay, great. So let's move on. Yeah, so this is just introducing you guys to syntax of the if statement, which already you have an idea about to use, and the if else statement. Okay, so if you have time, you can just refresh, just a refresher on this, and then yeah, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Now let me just quickly chip this in. It is very, very important that you all of these things, they might actually be very, very look too simple, right? But the thing is that, trust me, you never can tell when you want to make use of all this code. Okay, so because sometimes it's always very important that whenever I give you any task to do, you have a way, you find a way around it with your code. Okay. So I'll just quickly give you an example now, whereby you can use this line of code. So first of all, what I will do is that let me just quickly load this data set. Okay. Yeah. I have the data sets here. Okay, I have these data sets. So this data set, of course. So these data sets, right? All right, so I have a data set here. So this data set here, I is on my download folder. So okay, the data set is it's called this data set. So this is my data set and is in Excel format. So it uses an extension of SLSX. Okay. Of course, I know you guys must have this understanding of the extension of all of these data formats. You have the one for CSV.CSV. You have the one for Excel.SLSX. Okay. So, and I want to import this data set into my Jupyter notebook. Okay. So actually right click on this, get the properties name, get the folder paths. Okay. And then come to this place because I need to read this file from pandas. So I can use PD to Excel. Okay, then I use my app strings and paste this here. And then please, if there's something that you don't understand, just quickly let me know, please. All right, great. Well, I'm sure you guys know how to do that already, know how to read this file. Okay, so call the name of the file, yeah. Okay, then I use the extension XL. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I read this file. I'm coming. Oh yeah, there's no position mark here. So let me read this file. Okay. So the file actually contains a data about a data project store. Okay. So this file contains so many rows, so it might actually take some few seconds to run through. All right. Okay, so that this is the file. Okay, and then this is the file. And then so what I want to do here. So I'll just save it to a variable name called df. So what I want to do is that I want to be able to say, now there's a line of code that we can run on this file such that we will check the type of columns that we have in our data frame. So, we have different types of column, data type of column. We have strings, which is specifically, they call it objects. We have the floats, we have the integer, we have the categorical columns, of course. The categorical columns is, they can actually be, be subdivided into few different types. Like we have for the ordinal categorical, we have the nominal, which I have seen your tutor introduce you to. So what I want to do here is that I want to use just what we have knowledge of the for loops and the if statement to do just one thing here. And what I want to do here is that, so if you look at this info, yeah, you will see the different data type for all the columns that we have. Okay, so we have the product ID for this data frame. The product ID is the data type of it is objects, and object simply means strings. Then we have other ID. We have different data type for all the columns that we have here. So what I want to do is that I want to write a code. That code, what is going to help us to do is that it's going to search for the data type for all the columns we have here, and it's going to help us to save them. You return the columns names with the one that have object. Okay, it's going to return the one that has what numeric, the column that contains an object data type. Okay, guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, let me show you what I'm trying to say. So this is the f.sample. Let me just a random sample of this. Now, see, we have the product ID, yeah, which is here. We have the order ID. We have different types of columns here with their values. Now, what we are interested to do, right, is that we want to pick those columns that are string data type. So the column that contains string data type. Are you getting me? Now, for example, normally the column that contains string data type are for the first one, we have the product ID, we have product name, we have product category, and we have all of these ones, customer name, region, the segment, and all that. So I want to use a code. Although this is not really a particular application, right? But I'm just showing you because, you know, as a data scientist or as a data analyst, you should be able to come on top of your understanding to write something that will help you to prefer the solution. So what I want to do is that I want to write a code that will help us to select those columns that contains object data type. So for example, what I'm going to do first of all here is that I will need to first of all save all these my columns to a list, okay? And of course, I know by now you guys understood what lists are. This is a data structure that you can use to store, you know, values. You can use to store strings. You can use to store different, you know, data type. Okay. So what I will do is that first of all, store all my names of my columns in a list. Okay. So this is the name of my columns. Now, name of my columns here are the product ID, order date. So attention is to save or extract columns with data type or with string data type. Okay. So for example, like I said earlier on, product ID is a string data type, which is object. Product name is a string data type, which is object. So we want to extract it. We just want to pick them. There are so many things in Python. There are so many ways to write to get to to your destination, to get to your result. Okay. So what I will do here, I'll just store here this column name. Okay. All right. Now, so the strategy is going to be that I'm going to look at the first value for all the columns. Okay. So the first guy for all the columns, and then when I see the first value for all the columns, anyone that contains strings, I'm going to append it. Okay. So look at, for example, look at the first column. First column here is product ID. So let me just do okay. Let me just use I love. Okay, and then for this row, 5 rows, and just this. Okay. So let me just pick first 2 ones. Okay. Yeah. Now, if you look at this here, just from this. So if you look at this, yeah, if you look at this here, this data type here is a string, right? Now, how do we check for a string? So what we can do is that if I save this one to a variable name called X, right? And I want to check if it's a string, I can just say So we can run through this and look at what is happening, why we get into false. Okay. So x dot all right. So coming just around it. Okay, and this, I'm supposed to check. Yeah, so the idea behind this is that I want to be able to run a code that will help to check for the first value of all the columns. So if that columns give me a string, I will append it to my list, right? So using this syntax, I can be able to check for any columns that is a string data type. So I'm just trying to break this into modular statements. Okay, so this one here, this code we have here, line 50, is going to help us to check if that's what that columns is a string. Okay, so now the first thing is I'm going to iterate over all of this. So I'll say for column in column name. Okay, I do this. That's Ibrahim, can't we use the D type? Yeah, you can use that. Yeah, you can use that as well. You know, like I said earlier on, we have different ways to run to get to our destination, okay? You can use the D type. So what you're saying is that you're saying that the F of the first, let me just say the F dot columns. Columns, okay? And I have the F, then this with ID. There you want to say dot D type, okay? Oh, sorry, not calling, yeah. The type, yeah, object, okay? Yeah, Victor, you're on spot. So we can use the type. The type is, basically for, for pandas, okay? And then the type one is you can use it for all the types, all other objects, all of that object that we have in Python. So yeah, you can use this one here. You can use this one. But what I'm saying is that I am trying to make use of another algorithm, another code that will help me to check if it is a string or not. So first of all, I've actually been able to iterate over all this column name. So look at the column name, right? So what I would do is that I'll say if f, because my column name is going to come in as a string, okay? So if the f of this first person is a string, okay? Now let me create an empty list. So I'll call it list. Okay, so if it is a string, okay, then I want to be able to append this column. Now, what I'm trying to do here, guys, is that first off, like I said the other time, I'm trying to check for the first value of all the columns. Then when I check for the first one, if it's a string, then give it what? Append it. So if it's not a string, so if it's not a string, it's going to pass. It's not going to append any. It's not going to append that column names. So this run is just to run through for any column with data type that has what a string data type. Okay. So if I run this code, yeah, then I can print this score. Okay. If I run this, you see that my list score contains all the what? All the columns that has what? A string data type. So product ID is a column name, and the what data type is what? Is a string. The same as well with product name and all of these ones. You can even check that. If you want to check that, you can just check by calling list score. You see that list score here, they are all strings. So what I'm saying in essence is that understanding how the for loops and all these conditional statement works helps you to do anything outside, what you have learned. Like, it helps you to run through any tasks that you have. Maybe somebody just give you, oh, I want to check this thing, I want to do this. But you having the understanding of how this for loops use this if statement, make use of if statement, you'll be able to navigate your way around it because you understand how the for loops and how this conditional statement works. So for example, we are iterating over the columns names that has been stored. The variable name called list score. Then here is a statement. We are now trying to check what is the first value, the data type of the first value. So if the data type of the first value is a string, right? If this evaluates to be true, then you would append that column into this list. We append that column to this list. So it does that for all the columns, okay? So as soon as we're done, we come out of the loop and then we'll print it out. So this is a conditional. True or false. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, using this, this is a syntax that can help you. You're making use of your for loops and your if statement. So that's just one of those ways you can actually make use of your for loops and your if statement. You see that all of this has been extracted, and then you have the data frames for columns with string data type and all that. So it is not only just here. It's not only just here. You still have so many functionalities where you can make use of this for loop and if statement. So ready? So, but we are not even done yet. So we're still going to use them in a practical approach. Okay, we're going to use them in practical approach. So yeah. So these are the syntax for the if and else statements. And also we can, this is for the if else statement. So I'm sure these are things that you guys have already walked through before. You walked through before. Or where was the name initially declared? Okay, great. So when we have here, the f.columns helps you to extract all the column names, right? It helps to extract all the columns names you have in data frame. That's what it does. Okay, it helps to extract all the columns names you have in data frame. So when I extract all the columns in data frame, I set it to a variable name called name. So this is where we. Okay, great. Thank you, Bukola. So here we initialize a list, right? And then we iterate over this column name, and then we write our condition. Yeah. then what for if any of the conditions are evaluated to be true, we append it to this one and then we print it out, and that works fine for us. Okay. But yeah, but this is there's other ways we can do this. Yeah, other ways. This is not limited to only just this one. There are other ways you can do it. And we, in Python programming, always look at something. We look at the time complexity of our code, because when you write code and the code actually contains more lines, or it contains so many, n loops, then the degree of complexity might actually be higher. Okay, it's something degree of complexity match is actually very, very higher. And when you want to check for all of these things, you can actually use a time it to know how long does a line of code runs. Okay, so because it is always very, very important, because as a data scientist, you always write an optimized code. So this is just to try and shake your foundation a bit and see, if you can still make use of the for loop and the if statement. Okay. Okay, great. Say code 48. Can I explain it? Where is it? 48. So Ido addition, I think I've deleted that code. Can you still find it here? Or do you mean code 61, line 61? All right. So yeah, this is the addition. I'm still waiting for you. I can't find line 48 here. I think I've deleted that line of code. You can just let me know. So yeah, so basically what all this if for loop does is just for you to have an optimized way of doing things or running a task. For you to have an automatic way of doing things. Okay. So that's just the essence of you working with this for loop and programming especially. So okay, so let's move on. I don't know why mine. Okay. So we also have the nested if else statements, and that one contains, so when you have so many ifs in and another if, right? So you have them nested together. So it's it's something that you make use of them when you are writing code. Yeah, but this is the syntax of them. So the conditional outer, conditional inner, and the statement of the inner, and all of that. Okay. Yeah. So nested if statements. So all of these things are just for just to remind you of how to work with if statements. So now, what we want to do is that we want to write a code, a code that will help us to do to carry out some tasks in this this class. So if you look at what we have here, so we have this data set that we have imported here, which is this the F. And if you look at this data set, you see that this data set contains some names that are not well, they are not well labeled. Okay, the names are not well labeled. Okay, so for example, you have product ID, you have order ID, you have order dates, product name. Now, this product ID, if you look at it, you see spaces in between the name. Okay, there's spaces between product and ID. There's spaces between order and ID. And if you look at that very well, you agree with me that when you are running a code like a query method, you might not be able to make use of the way these columns names are. Okay, so what we are going to do is to find a way to treat this situation whereby we can rename this column name. Okay, so of course I know that if you want to rename a column name, you can just quickly run this code, the f.rename. and then you call column, and then you put down the initial column name in strings, and use a column to set it to the ideal product name you want to be. Okay. So you run this code. Sorry, it's columns. Okay. And then that will help you to, let me use, so that will help you to rename this column name as what product ID. Okay. And there's a space between it. So it means that if I need to work using a method, for example, let me reload this data set here. Let me reload this data set. I want to give you a situation why we cannot make use of the first column name, the one that have spaces. Okay. The one that have spaces. Okay, yeah. The one that has spaces, yeah, let's look at unit price, that spaces. Look at it. If I want to use a query method, I do df.query, right? And then I'm saying that for this column, I want to extract all the product ID that contains, that is above the price of 10. Okay. So when I run this code, you will see that I get invalid syntax. Okay. Get invalid syntax. Reason is that a query method does not like or doesn't work when you have spaces in between your column name. It doesn't work. So you need to first of all rename that column. So you need to first of all rename that column. So when you rename that column, you can what? You can quickly, it will what? It will return the result that you want. So yeah. So if you want to rename the column, then you can just quickly run through this code to rename this column. But that is only for just when you are working within one name. Okay. So how about if we have a situation whereby we want to rename from plenty columns, like more than one columns. Like for example, we have the product ID, we have order ID, we have order date, we have product name, and all of these things. How do we do this? How do we automate it such that you want to do it, what you want it to be done within seconds, right? Because you as a data scientist, you have been trained to make use of code that will help you to, to perform a task, very at a faster rate. So you do not need to be doing something, to be repeating yourself, to be taking, to be writing line of code and for everything. So there should be a way that you should be able to automate it using just few line of code, and then you get your result. And that's why the essence of you making use of your for loops and your if statement very well. All the line of code, you need to understand it very well so that you can choose it to carry out any task you choose to work with. Okay, fine. So that's what we want to do. So our intention here is that we want to rename columns as spaces in between with an underscore. Okay. So for example, this unit price now, instead of you having a space there, once we replace it with an underscore. Okay. That will work for every thing. So we are going to write code that will help us do that. So guys, as much as you want to be doing more practical class, as much as everything that we are working with is for practical essence, understand how code works too. That will help you to get some things that you might not really have a should I say a method, okay? A method in Python library. So you might have to just walk through with your line of code to get that result for you. Okay. So you as a data scientist, you're always thinking, how do I do something? How do I do something? How do I improve this solution? How do I work through this thing? So like this one here that we're talking about, what I want to do is I want to replace spaces for this with this. So yeah, so let's start. So all right, so guys, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, great. So remember that we've been able to save all our columns in this place. We save it in a variable called column name. Okay. And like I said earlier on, we want to replace where we have where we have spaces. We want to put our what an underscore in there using our for loops and our if statements. Okay. So the first thing is that I've been able to save them here. So next thing, what do we do? How do we identify columns that have spaces, column name that have spaces? Okay. So like me, I always look at how we can, how you can break tags into simpler form. Okay. So the first thing is that if I want to know that a name contains spaces, what do we use? What do we use? Because of course, what we have here is a string. Okay, so we can use any string methods to check if it's contained what spaces. Okay, so first of all, let me save it into um, into a variable name context, because if you are working within a data frame and you want to carry out a solution that will help you to run through, that will help you to that can apply to all the lines, to all the columns you have in your data frame. First of all is to pick just only with sample. So when you pick a sample then, and that sample works, then you can now apply it across everywhere you want to apply it, right? So for example, I just want to pick the first column name, which is product ID because it contains spaces. And what I will do is that I want to see how to go about cleansing this product ID that has spaces with an underscore. So the first thing is that let me see what is the best way to check if it contains spaces. So the first thing that we can do to check if it contains spaces, we can use our quotation mark that contains spaces, and then we'll ask, is it in this variable name called DST? And if that's, you run that code, and this will evaluate to be what, to be true or false. So if it is true, then we can now say that, okay, please help us to replace, because TST is a what? A string object. A string object. A string object. This contains a string object. Okay. But this is a string object. So since it's a string object, there's a method that we have as called what, replace method. Of course, I know you people will have been introduced to what replaced method, okay, in Python. So for every data structure, we have list or list or list or list for tuple or dictionary or sets or pandas or in fact series matplotlib. All of these guys here, they have what we call the methods. They have methods. So methods are functionalities that helps them to carry out whatever task they want to carry out. Okay. So like list now, list has a method called append method. And what it does is that it helps to store any value you have, any value you want it to be that you need to store in the list. You can use the append method to store it. Of course, you also have sorted method, which is a method that can help you to sort all the numbers or values you have in maybe in the list. Then you have tuples. So we have dictionary and we have all of these ones. Okay. So all these are objects. I like to emphasize more on objects. Object is when you use them, they contain some methods, and the methods we call them functionalities. So the functionalities are what can help you to carry out some sort of like maybe to a task. Okay, a task. Maybe you want them to copy something, or you want them to transform your values in a desired way. But here, when we are working with a string, the method under a string, we have them as like replace method. We have what we call the find method. We have so many methods in a string data type. Okay, so here, because we know that since our object or variable name tst is a string object, then we can do a replace method that will help us to replace spaces with an underscore. So what am I trying to emphasize more is that whenever you have an object that you're working with, try as much as possible to know what are the methods that you can do, the functionalities that you can do within that object, okay? Because, for example, if you want to do, you cannot do an append method in a string object, okay? Because it is not a method that is defined in a string object. Guys, are you with me? Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, yes. I can get
So,
it.
yeah, so you cannot use an append method in a string object data type, okay? So you should always know the different objects we have and the method that can be defined under them. It is very, very important. It makes you have control over whatever you want to do when you're writing your code, okay? Maybe before we move to the next class, I'll probably find another day that we can treat objects and methods. Objects and methods. I'm not sure if you have been introduced to this. Maybe introduced to objects and the methods under them. Hello, have you been introduced to this object and the method?
Yes,
So
we
I'm
are.
not talking about, I'm not talking about you defining a class object or instances of an object. But I'm talking about all the functionality that you can do inside a string, inside a list, inside a dictionary, and inside all of these structures. Okay, it is very, very important. But it's fine if you have been introduced to that, so it's fine. Okay, all right. So let's move on. So we can now replace the spaces here with. So we can replace the spaces here with an underscore. Okay. Then when we have that, we can now what? So we can print out. The text here. Can print out. Text. Sorry, print out text. Okay. I'm seeing something. Okay. Sorry, if this guy is containing this one. And replace this guy and print this guy. TST. Yeah, TST. Yeah, so that runs fine. And so let me just explain what is happening now. Like I said, there are spaces here. Normally, ideally, I can just quickly say TST dot replace, and then there's spaces there, replace it by underscore. That will give me that. Okay, but you have to be mindful of all other columns. Okay, so because it's not all the other columns that contains spaces, right? So what we are doing here is that we want to first of all check for the condition if there's a space in between the column names. So if there's space between the column names, then we can go ahead and what? And replace them here. So, but if there is no if there is no what spaces in between them, because so at that point we don't actually need to do any kind of replace. We just need the name back in our what, in wherever we are storing them. Okay, so this one is just to help us to check if there's a space in between them, and then we can now replace them. And when we replace them, we can now print them out. So yeah, this is how we can go about running that, replacing a particular product, a particular string type from a particular this is how to just replace to do a replace method in our string object. So our own motion is that we want to be able to carry out this on all the columns names here, because the columns names contain spaces. They contain spaces, right? But like I said, I just tried it out on just only a column name. So when I tried on a column name and I see that this works, and I can now what, apply this across all the column names that we have. Okay, so let's move on. So how do we now implement this for all the column names? And taking note that it is not all the column names that contains spaces, right? Because some columns names like total will not evaluate to be true here. So if it does not evaluate to be true, what do we do in that regard? Okay, so the thing that we're going to do in that regard is that we're going to write an else that will help us to take control over them. So let me just write. So I'll use my for loops, which is the concept that we understand already. My for loops. So my for loop is going to be for columns name, columns, column name. Sorry, column name. Right. Then this condition applies. So if this is true, then we can. Let me write it. So I can say st. Sorry. For column in column name, this guy is contained in our column. Then we can now what? We can add column, but replace spaces. Then we set it to a variable called y. Okay, and then we set to a variable called y. Now, we can do also is that because we want to have where we store the new column name that has undergone those changes. Okay, so we can just quickly initialize a new list that will help us to store the new column name that contains the changes that we've made. Okay, so we can just call this as a new column name. Initialize as a list, and then when we have that, we can now say sorry that I'm using a long variable name as my list as my list variable as my list, right? As my list object. I'm using a long name as my variable. So you can use any name. Okay, that's to be that's to be descriptive. Okay, so new column name append. Okay, so append is going to be y.
Sorry, quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
Why are you storing the column dot replace into a variable y? That part is a bit confusing to me.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What is very important is that when you're writing your code, try to be breaking it down so that people, other people can actually understand what you're writing. Okay, so reason why I set this to a variable name, because I can easily copy this and use it wherever I want to, append it directly or put it inside this append method. But I want to be able to set this to a new variable. Reason is that these changes that I'm doing here, I am now attaching it. I'm setting it to another variable. Okay, so that when I call this y will be the new changes that I've done. So the reason why I am creating a new variable name that will take all these changes is because I don't want to write a longer code here. I don't want to put all of this one here. I do not want to put them here. I don't want to put column dot replace here. I don't want to put it here. I don't want to put it here because it would be too long and it won't be readable. So I set it to a new variable name so that it can be much more simpler. Okay, just like when you're saying that number one is 50, and they say, please give me number one, 50 times 100 plus 90 raised power 2. Then that's a print for this guys. Now, instead of doing that, so that your code can be readable, you can just set this one to another name variable from 2, such that when you want to print, you just print what number 2, and that will be the same thing. So that's what I did here. This operation that I did here, I set it to any variable name so that it won't be too long, right? It won't be too long here, so that we can have a modular way of doing things. You have to break things down. You don't have to write a long code, because if you write a long code, somebody else might not be able to understand the code that you're writing. Okay, I don't understand. They might actually want to start checking them one after the other to look what is happening here. Okay, so but when you set it to a variable name, or you try as much as possible to ensure that the code that broken down is simpler, then that will help anybody that is reading your code to understand it. Okay, all right. So then
Please, I have a question before you continue.
Oh yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, please, and correct me if I'm wrong. So the reason why we're writing this new line of code is because we want to change all our column names that might have spaces in between them and just replace the space with like an underscore. So my question is, if that's what we want to do, why are we creating a new list? Why are we appending?
Great, thank you very much. Now, so now, why we are actually appending, why we're creating a new list is because that, you see, when we started from this code, when we started with how we can run these tabs, first of all, store it in a list. We store it in a list, the f.columns, then we set it to a variable name. Okay. Now, because we cannot make use of that same list where we stored them before, we cannot make use of the same of them. We cannot use that same one, because when we use the same one, it contains the old variable name, the old column names, and the new changes that you've made. Are you getting me? So we need a separate list that will help us to, that will help us to store the changes that we made. So that new list that we are creating will now be like as a substitute for the old ones. So we'll not be using the old one any longer. Do you understand? So, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So there are other ways you can do this. I will show you other ways where you can do this, where you can use your lambda function to do this. Okay, I'll show you other ways. I'm just running you through how if statement works, right? How the conditional statement of code works, how you can make use of them in a practical, because people actually believe that if statements and all these else statements, all these for loops are used when you have maybe when you want to do a user or a user defined code. Okay, so people see like it's more of like a theoretical terms. No, you can use this when you're having you want to quickly just carry out an automatic task on your data frame. Okay, an automatic task. So it will just run that changes across all of them. Yeah, two people are raising their hands up, but let me just.
Daniela. Sure. Okay.
All right,
Do you
great.
want? Okay, so the question I have is, you created that list new column name. I was thinking that you're going to write a line of code that will append txt to that new column name, that list, before you now write the next code. Or
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, continue. Just continue.
yeah, that's it. I was waiting
Yeah.
that you write it so
Yeah.
that, because right now there is no way that list is going to be populated for that for loop to work.
Okay. No, I'm not. Yeah. So thank you very much for that question, Lola. So what I did here is just a one-off sample, just a sample. Okay. I'm just when you are having a bigger tax, a long tax, right? In order for you to understand how to go about it, it is best that you just pick one of the sample of those longer tax, take the sample of it, then run through it, that sample, see how it works in that sample. And when you know that it works in that sample, then you can now apply it across all the bigger data sets. Okay. So what I did is that I was looking at how we can identify columns name with spaces. Okay. So I first of all pick just one of them. Okay. And when I pick one of them, I know that that one has spaces. So I use this conditional to check if it has spaces. So since it has spaces, then I go around to execute this code. Now, to answer your question, and I think the other person that asked the question is because you see this code here, TST is a variable name. Okay, TST is a variable name that is storing this string object. Now, this TST, I cannot use this TST here because TST is going to be containing this product ID. Okay, it's not going to be containing the new changes I have made. The new changes I have made, which is here, I'm storing it to a new variable. Okay, so it's just like, for example, when you need to say your data is going through different transformation, okay? And then maybe at the first instance, you have your data to be, say, 10, okay? And then the next thing you want to be able to probably convert that value, that 10, to something like maybe you want to divide it by a number 2, okay? Now, if you call this, let me use a scenario, okay? So 10, so I want to multiply this by 5, okay? Now, if I say x by 5, right? And I say print x. Now, if I print this x will still be printing what? 10. It will not give me the new changes that I have made, which is multiplied by 5. Okay? So if I print x here, to give me 10. But if I store this in a new variable name where my changes have been made, I can now print y. So when I print y is going to show me the new changes, which is the value where x has been multiplied by 5. So that is exactly what we are doing here. So because TST here contains this product ID name, we are trying to replace the spaces there with an underscore. Okay, so we cannot use TST any longer because TST will still be containing this value. Rather, we're going to be using the new variable name where the changes have been made, so which is TST underscore. So when we run this code, you see that the changes have already been made. So I don't know if that answers your question, Eniola.
Yeah, it answers my question. I'm just waiting for you to now write that code where we will now populate that list.
Okay, great. Perfectly. So we're going to do that, okay? Yeah. So please guys, you will not be please mind me when I make use of code very well, because I don't really like just talking about working with slide every time. I like us to be more practical. Let's do this, let's work it out, because I feel that when we work it out, we gain more knowledge about it very well. So most of the slides you get, you just run through them, not too much, just run through them quickly, and they will always get into practical. So this slide is for you to always go through it and check how the syntaxes are. For some of you that have not, probably you don't have idea how to go through the syntax. But I believe that from your beginner stage, you've already been run through all of these things. So that's why I'm skipping this part and to be much more practical. Okay. All right. So let's go. So I've built and initialize this called new column name, and I set it to this list. I initialize this list and set it to this variable name, and then I'm iterating over. Sorry. Let me say I'm creating this. I will store. Okay. So I'm treating. Wow. So column names here are the original ones. Have been created. And then this is the condition. So condition to check. There are spaces. Okay. And this will help us. So we make the changes. Replacing space, empty spaces. Oh, okay, let's go on. All right, so now we have done that, so we can now append all these new changes that we've made. Okay, append. So we are going to append them using, because a list has an append method. So we can append, right? Your new variable name called y. So now, but this is, we are not done yet. We're not done yet. So this actually treats for every column name that contains spaces. So how about column names that doesn't contain spaces? How do we treat those ones? Because what we are doing here is that this one is just going to contain, because if I run this one here, if I run it here, it's just going to run for all the column names that contain spaces. But what about the one that doesn't have spaces, right? So if you run this code, I'll just show you, just to show you here. Just show you. You will see that this is just going to work for all those ones that have spaces. So you will not see something like total here. You will not see total here. You will not also see something like discount column name. You will not see some of them here. You will not see some of them. So how do we have them? So we want to add them in a list, all of them, right? Both the old changes, both the old name, sorry, both the one that contains spaces and the one that doesn't contain spaces, right? So we want to add them such that the new variable name that we're going to be creating, that's going to be appending them to, is going to contain the new changes and the one that does not have spaces in there. Okay, so let's write a code. So this one is just to help you to extract for those ones that have spaces. So let's write a code that will also take care of those ones without spaces within them. So I know that at the top of your mind right now, you'll already be thinking of an else statement. Okay, so an else statement. Yeah, so this will treat. So this will out. That doesn't have spaces. So what do we do to them? Can anybody? What do we do to them for this one that doesn't have spaces within them? What do you think? What do you think we should do to them?
I think it would be, we'll just append. So it would be new column name dot append, then brackets COL.
Yeah, that's great. Who said that? Who said that? Who's that person that said that?
My name is
that?
Miriam. It's Miriam.
Miriam. Great. That's nice. That's nice. That's nice. So you really, so but before I do that, I will need to first of all delete this column name, because column name is containing the old changes, right? So let me just delete this. So yeah. So now let me just, I like to explain algorithm. Okay, so like Miriam rightly said, so this one takes care of those ones with spaces. Why the one that we're about to write will now take care of the ones without spaces. So we don't need to do any transformation. We don't need to do any changes on those ones. We just append them back. So what is going to happen here is that, let me explain what's going to happen. So this code here is going to iterate for every one of them. So, but how does it run? The first one will come in, which is the product ID, will come first. And when it checks, it will come into the next line and say, okay, do I have spaces in this product ID, right? So if you check, if you see that there is spaces in this product ID, right? Now, what do I need to do? The next line follow. So it says that, oh, product ID, please replace any spaces you see inside that product ID, and what replaces was what? It's an underscore. So when you replace that underscore, ensure that you set it to a variable name called Y. Then we set it to a variable name called Y, and you append it to this what? To this new column. So that will run through for product ID. So product ID will obey all this line of code. So it will obey all this line of code, and append the new changes, which is Y, and to save it to this place. And that goes for product ID. So product ID will run first and to be executed fully before we move to the next one, which is what? Order ID. So order ID 2 will come again. We'll look for spaces in there, replace that spaces with an underscore and append it. So it does that for again, order date, it does that again, and for every one of these ones. So when it gets to a column name like total, it will do the same thing. We'll look at, oh, do we have spaces in between this? In a column name called total, there's no spaces there. There are no spaces there. We jump all this code, to jump all of this code, and it will come to the else block, and we'll come here and just what? Append, just store them directly to this new column. And when it stores that, what that will just contain those. So your new column name here will contain the new changes for those ones with spaces, and the column name without spaces. So we can just run this one. So print. Oh, sorry, I've not run this. I'm using print. And that's correct. And that would give us what's wrong. Okay, Bukola Jai was as a question. So, but before that, how do we identify that this would actually work fine? So we can just quickly check changes to check our changes. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So, but we're not done yet. But if you're not done yet, so now what we now need to do, now let me just explain something to you. If you have a list, say 2, 10, and 16, we have another list. Yeah, I'll come in. I'll listen to you. List, let's say 1, 5. Now, what we're going to be doing here is that, remember that these list columns, the f.columns is a list that stores all these variables. So what we can do is that instead of this now, the f.column, we need to replace this the f.columns with a new variable name called new column. So I'm going to explain what that means. So what that means is that if I have list 1 here, my list 1 is containing 2, 10, and 16. I can simply say that, okay, I don't want these values of list 1 here. I want to have all the ones of the list 2. So I can just equate it to list 2, and then that comes to. When I check for list 1 now, see that list 1 is now containing all the values of list 2. So the same thing is applicable here. When I first of all carry out my def.columns, I notice that the def.column does not, it is a list, okay? Now, how do I effect that new changes into my data frame, okay? So what I need to do is to run this code, which is a list, and I know that this code that contains the list of all the column names. Now, if I equate it to the new list that contains the new changes, that will help me to what? To store all these values here, all the values here in our def.columns. So def.columns now contains new columns here. So if I run def.columns now, if I run def edge, if I run def.edge, you see that the changes have all been made. You see? You see that the new changes have all been made, okay?
Sorry, please, I have a question. Are we not supposed to use 2, like double equal to? Why are we using just 1?
For where? Where is that? Where?
For that, go down, please.
Okay.
Where you equated the old column names with the new column. Yeah, there.
So the double equals to helps you to check if left hand side is the same thing with the right hand side. If the the variable name from the left hand side is the same thing as so, but here is just to set these new changes to this one, so that whenever you are calling these def.columns now, it's now going to be extracting this product ID on us, or all the ones that the changes that we just made now. Okay, and that will help us to do that. So that's a very, very automized, like an automized way to do changes, writing just using your for loop. Okay, using your for loop. But another way we can do this, another way. Okay, so what another way we can do is that we can say that. So let me give you second scenario. But before that, there's a person that wanted to ask me a question now. Who was that person that wanted to ask a question? Second scenario. Changing space. To, let's go. Yeah, anybody that wants, somebody wants to ask a question the other time. Somebody wants to ask a question. Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, can you go up like that? A pin.
The first
All right.
append. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You know, here we have two conditions, if and else.
Okay.
What I noticed is the first, you created an empty list, which is a new column name.
Okay.
For the new column name, the condition is for the if statement, we are saying if column does replace, we are replacing, and we are inserting that Y into new column, which is the empty list, like appending it into the new column, which is the empty list, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
For the else statement, personally, what I was expecting was that there should be another empty list in which if the first condition is not met, the else statement should also be appended inside another empty list. But I saw that like the two are both appended inside the same empty list. So that's why I got confused.
Okay, great. So I like that question. What's the name, please? Eniola, right?
Bukola.
Bukola. Okay, because I've been hearing Ola. Okay, all right. Bukola, so I like that question. I like what the question you just asked now. Okay. So let me just explain this algorithm again. So now, where's my changes first? Column names, yeah, great. Yeah, column name. So this is my column names. Now, see the way this let me just put them here. Just hold on. So the way this one works here is that what we want to do, we want to be able to write a statement that takes care of column name that with spaces and one without spaces. Okay. Now, the append method that we are writing here, yeah, if you look at what is happening here, we are using Y, which is the new changes that we just made. And the one without changes, which is of course is for those ones that does not have spaces in between them. So we wrap it up in an else statement. So the else statement is just to tell us that, oh, if this condition is not met, because there are some instances where we don't have spaces in those column names, please just append them directly. You don't need to do anything to them. Append them directly. Now, let me explain how it's going to be storing into this list. Now, it's storing into this list because it's doing them one after the other. A line of the first value, the first iterator would be appended if and only if this if and only if they meet any of these two conditions. Do you understand what I'm saying now? Now, for example, if the product ID here contains spaces, right, then all of these ones will be appended. So this line of code will run through. But in the cases whereby it does not contain spaces, this one will run through. Now, the first one will go product ID, new column. In fact, do you know what I would do? Do you know what I would do? I'll just show you something. Let me just show you guys something. Okay, I'll just show you something here. Show you something. I'll just show you something. Now, let me use another new variable because I know okay, so at this point, let me just put here. So now I want to show you what's happening at the first one. Okay, now this product ID, obeys all these law, searches for empty spaces inside it. It sees that there's empty spaces that append inside, is append this to what's the new column name. So I run this code here, and it will not, so it just apply it to the first guy, that is there. The first guy that here is product ID. Product ID without, let me just. So the first guy that we have here is this product space ID, right? So that first one will be applicable It will just append what? Product underscore ID into this new column name, and it will break from it. I'm just trying to show you how Python executes them one after the other. Now, if I print this new column name here, you see that it is containing just the first changes, which is product underscore ID. It's containing just what the first change, which is product underscore ID. Now, after it's done, if I don't use this break statement, it will go to the next person, other ID. So other ID would have to be, you have to go through all of these codes and ensure that it has been executed before it moves to the next person. So what I'm saying in essence is that this code that we wrote here is to what? Is to take care for all the column names one after the other. So there's some situation whereby 3 or 4 would have already been appended inside it. For example, product ID, other date, product name, all of them have already been appended up till shipping price. Then the next one is now, let's say, total. So this total now will not execute here because it does not contain space. Rather, it will come here. And when it comes here, it will just what? Append into the already existing list that I've stored product ID up to shipping price. I don't know if you are getting what I'm saying. Hello?
Yes, I understand. I actually understand. I understand it.
Just like when you say, I have 10 things here, right? And I want to be taking them one after the other. So I'm taking one, I'm storing that one into a new container, maybe a new list, right? I've stored that one. I take 2, I'm storing that 2 again. Now, in my new list, what I'm going to be having there is going to be what? 1 and 2, right? So that's going to be, that will take place for every of them. So once it's moved to the next person, already the list would have contained the previous numbers stored already. Yeah, so that's just how to that's how this loop works. So it works for every. So the major thing is just to know that the one for this first one would not be fully appended. And sorry, the one for the second one would not be fully appended until this one has already been done. This has been executed first. So product ID has been executed first. Then it will now move to the next person. So that means what I'm saying is that product ID will have to agree with all of it. Will have to run through all this line first before it moves to the next one. All right, so thank you very much. So that's just that one. So let's move to the other ways we can do that. So another way we can do that is the second scenario is that we're going to be using what we call the applied method. Okay, and I'm sure that you guys have already been introduced to apply method. Anybody, have you worked with apply method before? Have you worked with apply method before, guys?
Yeah, we saw that in our beginner's class.
Oh, great, that's great, that's great. Oh, great. All right, so what we're going to do oh, somebody's saying I think we are way past time. Okay, I think it's from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Yeah, please just hold on, please. Let me just run through this and then we'll okay, let me just run through this and then we'll just quickly run through it. So yeah, so what I would do is that I will say the F. I'm going to first of all I put over this column name or call. So let me just, I want to use calls. So we use the have. I'm coming. The thing is that it's always very, very good when you understand how you can walk through something. Okay. I'm looking at another way we should do this. So we have product ID, we have this, we have that. Oh, okay. So guys, yeah, I think that's a very logical way to run through the output. What I was thinking is, I was thinking that the changes that we're trying to do is for the values for all the columns. So I think that's a very logical way to do this thing. So yeah. So that's a very logical way to do this thing. Yeah. So yeah. So but what if what we are trying to do is within the values for all the columns? That is the spaces within the values for columns. Then we cannot use this apply method, which I was trying to explain here. Yeah, and I use this apply method, which I was trying to explain. Maybe in our next class we can just walk through that. So yeah, guys. So that's just how to just quickly make use of the follow statements and if statement and else statement in the condition of our data set. So what we are going to be doing subsequently is that for any constant that we are introducing to class, we're going to be using them in the scenario of data set, because that is where you're going to be needing them, right? That is where you're going to be making use of them. So because you don't just want to be writing code and doing all of the Python codes outside data set, because that's the aim of you becoming a data scientist and a data analyst, so that you can use them in scenario of your data set. Okay, so if you have any question for me, please, I like to take questions now. Or if there's anything that you don't understand, please just let me know, and then we'll go through from there.
Hi.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Can we be getting the data before class, like before classes, so that we can just follow along, like practically just be typing the code as you type them to, like run the same code you're running and working with the same data set with you in class? Do you get the question?
Yeah, that's a valid question. Okay, that's a valid question, and then the question that you made is a very good one. So I'll make sure that in the subsequent classes I'll send out the data set first before we have the class. Okay.
Sorry, I would like to make a request. The slides are still not available on Citron. Please, can you make it available?
Okay, this slide.
Yes.
You mean this slide?
Yes, it's not available on Citron yet.
AB, I think it's there. It's there. Just read the sentence very well. You see where they say click here to access it. Just here, give you the link to that.
Oh, I just refreshed. That's actually why I asked. I went back to refresh, but I'll go and check again. Thank you.
Okay, but guys, do we have anybody that doesn't know how to make use of if statement? Because I have an idea. I was told that you guys you've already, all these things, and then you're already good at making use of them. So I'm using it in a scenario of using them in data sets. That's why I'm using all these ones. So, but do we have anybody that doesn't know how to use this code, so that I can actually be much more I can actually go much more to the basic or something? Do we have people that doesn't know how to use all of these if statements, or you don't understand a clear way of how to go about using if statements? Anybody? Okay, so I believe you guys all know how to make use of this. So that's great. So which any other questions, please?
Yes, please, I have a question. So
Okay.
for the column names that we changed, that we updated by removing those spaces, if I check my data set, is that
Okay.
what I would say?
Okay,
Like,
great.
will it be updated?
Thank you very much. And that reminds me of the essence of this first week, first month. So yeah, so I need to, so when I've actually made these changes, for me to be able to store these changes in my data set, in my file as well, I need to do something here. I need to call f.to, right? I'll put in the name of the file that I'm trying to use, right? So I can say, what do I call this data set again? Okay. Call data set is data projects stuff. So I can say new data stuff. But you see, let me just tell you something. Yeah. See. Now the thing is that when you're doing data gathering, okay, as part of data gathering, you need to, so whenever you have been able to cleanse your data set, right? Because you want to store all those changes that you've done in your data set. You should always save them, save the changes that you've done in your data set. So you can call this df.csv, and this will help you to store your data set in the format that you want. You can look at the implementation, okay? So anytime you want to run that file, you'll be able to run them, okay? So file is to zero. Okay, let me just save it as a format, as this format. Okay, and post. Right, so when I do pd.read, pull these guys out, the name of this file. Now on this file, you see that the changes have already been made. So this will help you to this will help you to make changes, to store the changes. File. All right, great. So yeah, so that's that. So that's just it. So you can see that when I save it here using this to CSV, I save it to the CSV format. Then I call the name of the CSV format. So that will actually extract the new changes, that the new data sets where the changes have already been done. So as a data scientist, when you run through all your kind of transformations from your data set, you do every kind of cleaning your data set, you transform them, you do the review of them. If you want, you don't want, if you want station by, you don't want to go back and run those cells that you used to do all your cleaning. All you just need to do is just do the F to CSV. Just save it to maybe any format that you want. If it's Excel format or the CSV format, just run this code and automatically they will be saved into your directory. So when you come to your directory, you see them here that has been saved as new data.csv file. So anytime you want to run them, so you can just call the name of this file and then do your pd.read, and then that will help you extract this information. All right, I don't know if that answers that other person's questions.
It does, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so there's so many changes that we can do on this data set. So, but as time goes on, we'll just be looking at our concept of the topic that we have, and then we'll be using them here to use them in a practical approach. Okay. So, if you have any other questions for me, please can you just go ahead and just ask them. Any other question?
Sorry, your exercise, where would you prefer it done? VS Code or Jupyter Notebook?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So do you want, when I'm doing a implementation of maybe machine learning algorithm, I like to work with this environment, VS Code. But then the black part of the interface is something that I don't really enjoy like that. Okay. But then if for this class, if it's something that we want to be using, yeah, of course we can work with the VS Code and then it's fine. Or if it's PyCharm, we can work with PyCharm. Then, the difference, the difference is that this Jupyter Notebook, they made it for strictly like a data scientist, right? But that VS Code is for even software programmers, every field you can make use of them. So yeah, and it is much more robust, has much more that's much more how do I call, like a blend with other fields. So yeah, so if it's something that we want to be making use, of course we can work on that then using VS Code. Okay, I don't know if that answers your question.
Sorry, so you're saying VS Code, right? Just to be sure I got you.
Yeah. We can use VS Code. Fine. All right. Any other question, please? Any other question?
Yeah. So you were mentioning, you talked about methods, right?
Yeah, Temitope, I can hear you, methods.
Yeah, so for me to combine all these methods, I need to have a strong grasp of them, like not just knowing one, two of them. To have an in-depth knowledge of. Yeah.
Yeah, to be said, yeah. Yes.
So you were mentioning something about an extra class, maybe to just brush up our knowledge, because we've actually done something, but not too in-depth on it. So
okay, no problem. We can fix a class. I don't know if it's allowed in students policy. We can fix a class then that will help you guys so you can know all the objects and how to use the methods under them. Just time.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Okay, so yeah, thank you very much for that. So the major the core focus of this of the first one is that we just want to be teaching you guys how you can just investigate data sets. Okay, so carrying out some few cleaning in your data set, then analyzing the data sets for us to have just to know if you know how to make use of this thing. So that's why we are taking all this one. So you're gonna be in the second month, we're doing more data wrangling, gathering, and assessing skills of your data set. But the first month here is just like just the first week is like a vision of what you guys have been doing and how to implement them in practical aspect. And then subsequently, we're going to be working with data sets more often. So just what I'm trying to say is that expect more of data sets, expect more to see, also work with data sets, different kind of cleaning, different kind of algorithms that will help us to solve certain tasks in our data sets. So expect more of that. Okay. So yeah. So the exercise here is there. So this is the exercise last. So the exercise here is here. So we have exercise here. So now you'll probably be seeing sometimes we walk through. So although the exercise is very, very simple, it's just a code. It's just to write how you can use your for loops and all those ones and all that. But please, I will advise you to also, attend the quizzes that you have. I sent a quiz earlier today. Please attempt it, but please don't just quickly, because those things are code. Those quizzes are code. Don't just take those code to your Jupyter notebook and just run them and just quickly get the answer. No, that will not help you. Look at the algorithm, look at the code, then study them, look at how they work, and evaluate it yourself to be able to get the answer directly. So, and that will actually help you to get better with writing codes, and not just writing code, but optimized codes. Okay. All right. So yeah. So any other questions, please? Okay. So should I should I send this Jupyter notebook, the file? Should I send the file?
Please do. Yes.
So can we push to GitHub from here? Yeah. So if I would advise you, when you're pushing to GitHub, let it be project that you're working with, let it be something that when any employer see it, when they see it, they would like it. But here we're just quickly still working just bit by bit, right? So at the end of every month, you're going to be working with projects. So definitely that project, you can now make use of pushing it to GitHub and all that. Okay. So but for this ones that we're having a subclass like this class that we're having like this, it's just for how to make use of all of these concepts in our data set. So to not be advisable, just push them to GitHub, because we have not really done any of these things. All right. So I'm gonna download this file. Then I don't know how to. Okay, I'll let from student how I can send this file to you guys as well. Okay. So, and I've gotten your feedback. Your feedback is that I should send you guys data set before the class, and then the codes as well. Okay. So no problem. I'll do that. All right. Thank you very much. Please, if you have any other question or any regards from you, you can actually message me on I think the Slack platform will be up very soon. So you can message me there if you have any concern or anything outside even this thing that we are doing here. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.